Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is Chris Wiley with Wiley Development. It's just the top of the hour now. In my experience with these events, it takes 2 or 3 minutes to get everybody settled in. Again, my name is Chris Wiley. I'm part of Wiley Development Group. We assembled Wiley Development Group a couple of years ago to help my son when he came out of the military. We sponsored him to develop some stores. We had a 5-store plan, and today he has 4 restaurants and is building his 5th. I've been in banking and capital markets my life. I'm a consultant, and I am not part of the franchisors. My brother Ray is a guest panelist. I'll introduce him in a minute today. He is the CEO and co-founder of 2 franchise brands. We happen to operate some of those stores. But what we're talking about today is us and our business and the partnerships that we've developed and how we've set out to go out into the market and help expand our brands and other brands through various partnerships, including some of the folks on the phone today. So what I'd like to do with that is, let's talk about the topics that we want to cover. See if I can get the slides to move properly. These are the 4 topics that you saw in the invitation. We're going to talk about amazing restaurant-specific tax incentives. If there was ever a political action that some special incentives went in for a certain group, we happen to be the group that benefited. I don't know how they got there, but I'm sure glad to have them. We're going to talk about how you can build more stores with less capital by leveraging those incentives. Darren Nicholson is with us today. If we get him on mic as a panelist.
I am on mic. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Darren, thanks for joining us. Darren is a strategic partner in the self-pour alcohol space. We're going to talk about the fast casual revolution that we are all part of and that our customers are part of. And we're going to talk about how that can potentially introduce the dollar per ticket in your business, how it can reduce your percents of cost of goods sold and even labor if things go well. It's an opportunity to grow your business. Today we're going to touch on those topics. Darren will be joining us for an event in a month or 2, and we'll alert you that as we go through. The battle for locations is our 4th topic. Again, we'll go about 15 minutes per topic. We're going to talk about how to accelerate your store development by having access to partnerships that will either convert buildings for you or build buildings for you. And you know, we're not out there alone. There's a lot of QSR fast casual brands fighting for locations. We happen to be friends with some of them. I like to say I was practically born in a Pizza Hut. Ray and I grew up in a family where Dad was one of the first Pizza Hut guys, literally like number 4. And we moved every year of our life, and we build a lot of stores, but we have a lot of relationships in the industry, and we're trying to bring them to bear for an opportunity with us and our partners. Matt Clapp, who's with us today, thank you, Matt. It's on camera. Matt has basically taught me everything I know about social media marketing. I never used Facebook until about 4 months ago when we launched our beer platform. We'll talk about that, and you're going to talk about customer acquisition, reducing your cost of it, not only getting customers to come to your store, but getting them to keep coming back to the door. So with that, I would like to jump into a couple quick introductions. So Darren, thanks for joining us. Just can you give me 2 seconds about iPour It and how our partnership works?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. My name is Darren Nicholson, and I manage sales and marketing for iPour It. iPour It is a self-serve beer and wine alcohol technology, and we are working with Wiley Development Group to help them broaden the self-serve offering in their footprint, and I look forward to having an opportunity to describe what it is we do.
Great, and Ray is with us. Ray, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. I guess any thoughts or words of wisdom as we jump into this for the day?
Well, thanks for having me today, and I'm sure I've got some good points to make here and there, and just feel free to fire questions at me.
Awesome. We'll try to keep them on script a little bit. Not that we're very well scripted, and Matt, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the technical support. Thanks for helping us reach the audience that's here. And for those of you in the audience who are investing your time today, Matt, I'll have you jump in as we jump into the social media topic, and again, keep me on track. With that, I'd like to get everybody warmed up, and we're going to launch our first poll of the day. So if everybody could grab their mouses and turn your attention to the screen for a second. This is to help me get a little context for where you guys are coming from as a part of this audience. So it's as simple as clicking on the poll on the screen, and that'll give you an opportunity to share what your perspective is. Are you a single store operator? Are you a multi-store operator? Do you have more than one brand? Are you completely new to franchising or maybe considering investments in the space? I see that just about everybody's voted. I really appreciate your participation. And thanks for playing along. There's just looks like about 4 or 5 more people. So please click in. It'd be great to get your perspective and help us understand what the audience is all about. There's a couple more. Thanks for playing along. You'll get some practice. We'll do this 4 more times during the event, and you guys can learn about each other as we learn about you. So we're most of the way there, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results of the poll. And bear with me a second. I'm going to try to get this onto the right screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
You can see it? There we go. You can see it. I couldn't see it. A little bit of screen fun. So I see we have a pretty good mix. Folks that are new to the business, folks who invest in restaurants. We certainly have a lot of partnerships with folks who do. Hopefully what we share today will inspire you to continue to invest in restaurants. And a couple folks that are multi-store operators, and nobody I see is multi-brand like we are. We're going to talk about why multi-brand or operating multiple brands is potentially a huge opportunity to take advantage of these tax advantage or tax system advantages. With that, I'm going to try to be graceful about this because my screen's jumping around a little bit. And we're going to move on to the next slide, wherever the slide went. There it is. Okay. 1 second. Excuse me. One more try. There we get the screen frame back up. There we go. Thanks for your patience. In talking about those results, and actually I'm a little out of sequence, I apologize. What I'd like to talk about is we're going to jump into another poll now that we get a sense of who's on the phone. That you guys have some single unit operators, we got multi-unit operators, we got some folks investing in the space. Our first core topic, and I'm going to throw a poll at you one more time, and then we'll move through the slides and the topics, is how much of a new store investment can be written off or used as a loss carry forward? These tax incentives, and I'm really challenging you to think about it, see if anybody understands what these tax incentives have done. They're actually amazing. In the past, there's been incentives for a long time. Ray's always told me, never stop building stores, because you stop building stores, then you're starting to pay taxes on all that income. I'd appreciate it if you guys can share with us some thoughts about that. So with that, I'm going to put the next poll up here. So if any of you had any exposure to the tax incentives that drive this space, is this all new to you, or is it something you guys have some experience with? Again, I appreciate it if you jump in, and then we'll know if we've got really an informed group or folks that are new to it. I'll try to adjust the detail as we go. And we will have a CPA partner of ours come back for a full deep dive on this topic, how to do it. I see about half of the folks on the call have voted. It'd be great if you guys can chime in and provide some additional perspective. Again, I referenced Ray's phrase that never stop building restaurants so that you can keep taking advantage of the tax incentives. The tax incentives changed massively last year, and we're going to talk about how that works. Thanks everybody who participated. And so there we go. Some of you are informed. So for those of you who are still focused on the 50% incentive, hopefully today will be a surprise. There are some quirks to it that we've learned in the last year, and they were a nice surprise when it came time to tax season. So 1 second, I'm going to move on to the next slide, and I'm going to give you a real live example as we hide the poll results. Let's get back here on full screen. There we go. So our trusty CPA helped us out by providing a real live example of how the incentives can be applied. This is a typical example. The stores in our business that I operate with my family are typically about in the $400,000 to $500,000 range to build out a store. So that's the example that Steve shared with us. The 2017 example is the way we used to experience it. We've always had, as the couple of you guys on the call realized, approximately 50% of the qualifying part of the investment created a tax advantage. And depending on when you open in the year and how much money you make during the year, it was very difficult to actually take advantage of all of that. We'll get into the specifics here in just a second, But as you can see, even after applying the typical things like amortization, depreciation under the old system, your amount of tax incentives that you could take advantage of were limited because the old Section 179 process had some limitations. The new process that's depicted here on the second column under 2018 is a great example of if you put out $100,000 and borrow $400K to build a store, which is a very typical scenario in my experience with our stores, the qualifying amount of those incentives literally amounts to, as Steve depicted down here in the bottom, the 100% bonus depreciation plus the Section 179. We'll talk about how you have to do it correctly, but literally, in this example, we were suggesting that the store may have earned, $150,000 in this example, and that $350,000 would have carried forward into the new year. So a total of $500,000 in incentive is created. If you open in November, December, you carry it all forward. If you open in January or February, you're going to use some of it the first year. But theoretically, you can protect a couple of years' income with this type of a tax incentive. So pragmatically speaking, it maximizes how you use your capital. You can protect your earnings and recycle those earnings to build more stores and build more tax incentive. As best we can determine, this is going to go on for a while. So one of the dilemmas for folks that want to take advantage of these opportunities to build more stores is what I call the 50-mile rule. The challenge with the 50-mile rule is that most of us, and my son included, don't want to drive more than an hour in one direction to get a building up or to manage a store or to deal with personnel issues. The opportunity to get more stores in your market, and I use my son as an example, is really much bigger if you operate multiple brands. By operating multiple brands, you have an opportunity to leverage that overhead, those folks that are driving around between stores in your area management capacities, your corporate support system, and you can keep them in a regional market in that typical 50-mile rule. What I have up on the screen here as an example was the current stores in Ray is our sponsor for the brands Hothead Burritos and Rapid Fire Pizza, and the stores that we currently operate. This is an example of their stores plotted in Dayton, Ohio, where their business launched. Ray, could you share with us a couple thoughts about having multiple brands near each other? And, I'm fond of the story you used to share about, you operated Subways for a lot of years, and then you built your first Hothead by a Subway. But could you share some thoughts about operating multiple brands and building on a market?
Yeah, I would just say, like the 50-mile rule or the 1-hour drive rule, if you're in a metropolitan area like we are in Dayton, it's probably about 40 minutes to the furthest corner of our metro area. And so, for us to build within a 1-hour drive time, we could, if we were doing one brand, we'd be limited to doing X amount of stores. But since we do two brands, we can literally double our store count in that area. And we can sometimes you can use supervisors to overwatch multiple brands. That can be a little tricky sometimes, but we do find there are a lot of efficiencies as far as not being so far out. You can with multiple brands you can have more stores in a smaller area, and that's really the simplicity.
Well, and Ray, could you talk for a second about what you used to tell me that the goal in the food business was to be in the customer's favorite five, the Fave Five as they used to call it. And that when you transitioned from operating Subways and created the Hothead brand, you built that next to a Subway, right? The first store?
Yeah, first store was built near Subway, and I was in Subway for a number of years. And I don't remember exactly where I picked up that terminology, the 5 fingers on the hand, but there was a belief in the marketing arena that in the food business, if you could be on that top 5, the 5 fingers of the hand. For instance, you're sitting in your office. Hey, we're about to go to lunch. You look at your coworkers and say, hey, where do you want to go to lunch? And most likely they can list off 5 restaurants they'd go to. And if you can be in that 5, then there's about a let's say 20% chance they're going to come to your store that day. If you never even made it in the list of 5 that they talked about, then you're probably not going to be they're not going to be coming to your store that day. So that's the hand, the 5, and that's kind of how that works.
Yeah. So effectively, when you carried your Subways for a significant period of time after you built Hotheads, you effectively had 2 options in that 5. And then when Rapid Fire came along a couple of years ago, you got it to 3, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yep.
All right. Well, excuse me. Oops, excuse me. Please, Elena?
So, Chris, you're going to be touching that. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ray.
Oh, I was just going to touch on that depreciation. I will say that, as being a person who has owned a number of restaurants and multiple brands, whatever, but, if you're in the restaurant business and if you're continually building restaurants, the depreciation tax incentives can be really good. And I can remember in my early days at Subway, I was continually building stores. And when I quit building stores and all of a sudden I had all that income coming in without the accelerated depreciation, the tax bills get pretty significant. So it can be very beneficial to do that. And eventually you're going to have to pay, the taxes on your income, but that depreciation will reduce your taxable liability in those early years, and it can really help.
Well, and it can fuel your growth, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's why it's there. It makes it so a young business is not, a young business is carrying debt, so it reduces their cash flow, and this depreciation reduces your taxable income. Therefore, it makes it easier to service your debt, and it's a very, it's a brilliant thing from the government to do because it helps young companies grow and keeps their cash flow healthy.
And that's why they call it the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, right? It is giving us the opportunity to build more stores and create a bunch of jobs, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I don't have to read the slide to you guys. I think those of you who are watching can see it. But a couple of things that our CPA was really specific about, and he'll be a presenter when we go into this topic and some related topics in February. But he's quite passionate about the sequence in which you take advantage of these. If these are new to you, I'm not here to give tax advice. Your CPA can do the research. The big surprise for us, in case any of you put stores, is this item in the middle here, in case any of you put stores into service in fourth quarter of 2017, which we went live in a store and we acquired some stores during that quarter, the tax rules that went into effect in 18 are retroactively applied. We discovered that well after our taxes were filed. We ended up refiling, and it was a windfall that helped move us on to the next store. So if you weren't aware of that, you want to find out about it if you put stores into service. The rest of it, again, you can see the basics of it. And with that, I'd like to wrap up this topic and really set the idea forward that in February, Steve Brockman will join us. That will be the details of it, some more ideas about it. There are some special considerations for it. He'll get into things like you can't build the building and occupy the building and take that tax incentive. That tax incentive is created for tenants. There's a bunch of quirky things about the rules. They're clear, they're straightforward, but they're quirky. And we can talk about how that works, and he'll go a deeper dive if you want to invite other members of your team to something that's a little bit more in the weeds. With that, we've covered our first topic. Elena, forgive me for jumping ahead.
No problem.
Hopefully you guys got some ideas from that. For those of you who weren't exposed, for those of you who are exposed, hopefully we inspired you to move forward on it or take advantage of it. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about locations, but first I want to talk about the fast casual revolution, why alcohol is literally a tipping point. It's changing the business in ways that I think none of us ever expected. So let's see. Well, go ahead, Elena.
No, I was just going to say that thank you. I just wanted to note, I work with Chris at Wiley Development Group and the rest of the team. And so we're going to move on to the second topic, fast casual revolution in alcohol. And Chris is going to take us through that. So we're through the first section of 4, just as note, and there will be a deep dive in all these topics moving forward. So go ahead, Chris.
So as a context for talking about fast casual alcohol, again, I've been in capital markets. I've been a consultant a long time until my son jumped into this business and wanted to build a bunch of stores. I really didn't get into the nuts and bolts of the industry. Any of you who follow it or been to the conferences have probably seen this chart. It's out there by the folks at Technomic. The fast casual segment is crushing it. Now, in my research, it doesn't necessarily mean, and I think Ray would agree, it doesn't mean stores are having 10% or 9% annual growth every year. People are building stores in this segment, and that's creating some of the competition for locations. But the segment is exploding in growth because patrons are essentially coming down market. They're coming away from the concepts where you have servers, where you have to wait in line to get a table, where the entire dining experience is, 90 minutes. And as they make that transition, a couple of things are happening. The fast casual segment is just carving out market share as depicted in this slide. People are moving to fast casual, and folks that pioneered in fast casual that are depicted on this slide, they may not be well equipped to ride that wave, and here's why. Up at the top, let's face it, some of our competitors are pretty good at fresh and customized in any way I want it. Everybody's getting on the anytime, anywhere, third-party delivery bandwagon. But we're finding that by spending time in our stores, and when we launched our beer wall project, I'll talk about in a minute, speaking to customers day in and day out, we found they had great relief that they could finally get a real beer. They could finally get a glass of wine. They could finally get cider and varieties of other beverages in a way that they are accustomed to in the upper scale restaurants. And I'm not talking Ruth's Chris or Fleming's, but I've had a lot of customers say, I'm going to take the family to Applebee's, or I just went with my son for a birthday dinner to Red Lobster the other night. Part of the reason you're going there is the alcohol. So we've, like many people, we have experimented with alcohol. Most of the stores that we operate had liquor licenses, and we have bottled beer and wine. One of the challenges of bottled beer and wine out of a cooler is that people just aren't inspired to buy it. They're walking down a service line, they're going through a cashier experience. As fast as we are, that experience is not conducive to deciding on what you want to drink. It's typically something a server might have helped you with. So what we're doing is we decided to make an investment and explore self-pour. And if I look back at our alcohol experience, we were lucky if we could get that bottled beer and wine and cider out of a cooler or out of a cabinet to actually get to more than 1% of sales. It was hardly worth all the brain damage to have the liquor licenses, and yet the customers say they want it. So I'm going to take us into, actually, I have a question for the audience here real quick, and I'd like to run another poll, and that is, what is your experience with alcohol? And again, we'll frame a couple of these points, and then Darren and I are going to share some gory details, which are good details, actually, from our experience together. So for those of you in the audience, if you could, with us, share what your experience is with alcohol. Is it like us? If you have bottled beer and wine, it's in a cold case or an ice bucket, is it, a marginal little 1% of sales? If you are like some of our friends, we have some partners that operate a steakhouse chain. They tell me they get up around 15% of sales. We've interviewed some of Darren's customers that are certainly full-service restaurants, as we did due diligence together, and they're 50% food and alcohol. So I see a couple of you guys are voted. For those of you guys who are out there, if you would, please, it'd be great to have you chime in. Share with us what your experience is with alcohol, if it's part of your business, or if you contemplate it being part of your business. I see about half of the folks have chimed in. No, there's a few more. Thank you. Hopefully I won't bore you guys, and we'll get some good topics out here for you. So let's look at what everybody said. 80% of the folks in the room are saying it's less than 1%. Ray, I didn't plan to throw this at you, but would you say, looking back over the last couple of years with all the liquor licenses you've had in the various brands, that, prior to the self-pour concept or your actual, you did a store with a bar, was 1% your experience?
Yeah, it was pretty low. It really was. Mm-hmm.
Really, really low.
Now we have a new cantina format that's a little higher than that, but yeah, 1%.
And by the way, Matt, who's on the line, Matt, you've been in the supporting the social media efforts of bars and restaurants over the years, right? Is it fair to say that your customers were mostly on the full bar side, or were they inclusive of full service menu concepts?
I had 6 clients that were hardcore breweries, and a lot of them that were full concept, kind of like Rapid Fire and Hothead. The funny one is, you talk about the percentages. One of my clients that we had for 7 years had a problem that they were 60% alcohol. They were too high, and they were constantly struggling with getting below the threshold, so that, because I guess their liquor license said you got to be 50-50 food and alcohol.
Got it. Well, thank you, Matt. Let's see, I'm going to take that off the screen and let's talk about a little bit of our experience with this. If I can get back to the slides. Thank you very much, slides. So here's how we jumped into it, and we're going to talk about what our experience was, and then some of what we've learned. Pete and I are beer fans. My brother Pete is part of Wiley Development. He is a brewer, and we have been studying the self-pour phenomena. It started, I think, Darren, it's fair to say, it kind of started on the coast. It started in the big cities. But we decided to try it. What you're seeing is a cabinet, effectively, that we retrofitted into one of our stores. This is an 18-tap system. That was all we had room for in that store. It gave us the opportunity to bring in essentially kind of about 6 sets of 3 flavor profiles. We have stuff that ranges from cider to sours to regular beers, ciders that taste almost like a rosé wine. We did have the opportunity to do wines, but we didn't do it. But here's what we learned. For us, in our experience, we had a little honeymoon period. It was a pretty good boost to our sales. But what we really saw, and it's still a boost to our sales, by the way, but we saw dollar per ticket increase. And that was our experience in our one store. I don't know if Ray saw that in the store that they retrofitted with a small service bar. But dollar per ticket has sustained. We put the system in about October. Our dollar per ticket was material, and what we found is that that customer who came in and bought the alcohol bought a lot of food. The dollar per ticket for the customer who had alcohol simply has more food than a customer who only comes in to buy food. It was really a very pleasant surprise. I actually spent about 25 straight nights in the store hosting the beer wall. We'll show you how it works in just a minute. But we also saw some stuff that were some huge expansion in the distance customers were coming to our restaurant, where they were coming from and how. And I'm going to have Darren talk in just a moment about the data that's available in the system. Excuse me, I just want to make sure I'm staying on sequence here. We have a video. So I mentioned earlier that we launched this whole system using Facebook videos, thanks to help from Matt, who's on the line with us. We wanted to do kind of a soft open when we did the retrofit. We weren't sure what would happen. So we moved cautiously. We shot some videos, and they were kind of fun. I'd like to try one of those out on you real quick so you can see what this is if you've not ever experienced self-pour. This is a little bit of a science experiment, so I will caution you guys. If your screen goes blank, we'll be right back in about 30 seconds. Most people will be able to view the video. You can go see it online, and there's some information in the invitation you saw. So let's see if I can share. See if I can share the video. No, I might not be able to do it.
Can you just share your screen? Go to Facebook, yeah, and share your screen.
You know what? I can do it that way. That'll get us there. Oh, no, this is it. I think this is it. Here we go. Let's try it.
I think you're sharing us.
There it goes. Oops.
And then put your and then you can put your cup right into it. Yep. And then pull back hard, and then push forward hard when you're done. Right. And like I said, you can get as much as you want or as little as you want. This guy's a pro. First one.
Trained. Look at that. Cool, so you're famous now, man.
And it's done. And it's going to show you that you have 15 minutes, and you have 17 more or so.
There you go. That's pretty cool. What was your name?
My name's Cody.
Cody, thanks, man. Appreciate you stopping in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can get back to the slides.
Still see cameras. Now I see us.
Okay, are we back?
I think you're back. Yep, I think we're back.
All right. Hey, I hope you guys like that. It's a little bit of an experiment. We're trying to spice these things up a little bit. In the invitation that you originally received, there are links to a number of videos. But what you just saw was a person, the sheer delight on his face. Pete, my brother, since did a whole bunch of interviews with other people who had been to the store and tried it out. People were all over Facebook. They were all over Instagram. It created a bit of a viral thing. I mean, for me, getting 30 some odd thousand views on a video was a big deal. We're thrilled to have that happen. But what's really important about this is the buzz it created, and those customers are still coming back. So what I'd like to talk about a little bit is the draw distance that we're seeing. So what I've done, I pulled these pictures from some of our normal location research. And when we build our stores, and I think this is very true of the other franchisors that are partners of ours or friends of ours in the space, we're very focused on the 2-mile service area being the center of this loop. The greater 5-mile service area when we're in big small towns or out in suburbs is equally relevant. Obviously, if you're in a metropolitan area, 2 miles is kind of your competition area. But what we found, and this is because the Self-Pour system requires the patrons to have their driver's license scanned. It's painless. Nobody seems to have any resistance to it. I was really surprised, frankly. Even elderly people are flattered when you scan their driver's license to give them a beer. But what happened is the data that's provided, you can see the heat map up on the right-hand side. Our platform that Darren provides allows us to understand where our patrons are coming from. As an aside, it's perplexing to me that we can't get our point-of-sale vendors or our merchant services vendors to provide us this same data with the level of service that we're having with Darren's team. But it's been super insightful. So you can see how this simple location literally spanned across the border. It literally increased our service area to more than 100,000 residents and 80,000 employees in a store that normally, and for the first year of operation, was really drawing its business from about 5 miles. This next slide, and Darren, I'd like if I could have you comment a little bit about what you guys have learned about service areas and how that's affected various sizes of stores. But here's the setup. What we found in my 25 days of standing in the store and hosting the beer wall and showing people how to do it, like you saw in that video, I got to talk to people a lot. That's what owners should do, right? And what I found is people were coming in for dates. It was more than just a pizza. The husband and wives or husband and wives with kids or mom and dad or young couples. We had couples driving, like in this example, I actually spoke to one that drove the 25 minutes from Findlay to come check it out, and they come back. So, Darren, can you share what you guys have learned as a vendor partner about what this does to the alcohol sales and to the service area of your clients?
Yeah, certainly. Well, first of all, I just wanted to go back to, we talked about the data, and in the U.S., obviously, we have a 3-tiered alcohol system, and everyone has to have a government-issued ID to access alcohol. So, in the way that iPour captures the data, we actually turn it into business intelligence, much like what you're talking about here, Chris. But every person who checks in, we capture their age, their gender, and their zip code. So what we're looking at here is, obviously, this is a zip code heat map. And when we look at this and compile this data, we find that, even outside of the urban living, high density, metropolitan markets, in some of these smaller markets, which Chris refers to as big small towns, this draw or this interest in the type of product and the way it is presented and the experience that the patron gets from that experience really does bring them from a larger circle or a larger market, which I've learned a lot from you, Chris. I really like kind of talking through, the available market. And we as business people, we always think about what is our available market. And when you look at this technology, this available market really expands. And the data, just the business intelligence shows us that. And it's exciting to see you use that in your presentation today.
Thanks, Darren. And one of the things that Darren has taught us, and I'm watching the clock, we're a little behind schedule because I know you guys are all allocated an hour at the most. But a couple thoughts. When we put our system in, we called it the beer wall. We were very focused on beer. We're beer guys. We found what some of the other operators told us, almost, let's just say the cider almost outsells the beer, and that was an education to us. But we get a lot of requests from the female audience for wine. And not to go into it deep today, Darren will do it on the next call. He'll go into an entire tapestry of the first-time customers, the regulars, the aficionados, and I love the names he has for it. But suffice to say, we're going to expand the number of taps is our intention, and in our new locations, we'll do larger installations so that we could accommodate a half a dozen taps of wine. And most interestingly, and one of the takeaways today is that wine drives at a higher price point, but the audience, which is the more mature female clients, are not as sensitive to that price point. They want the glass of wine. And that's why I go back to the date night concept. I think we had an opportunity, and we've experienced it, where people are coming, they're staying a little longer. Their propensity to take out is going down a little bit. And just the behavior, they're not drinking to excess. They finish their beer or their wine, or sorry, their beer or their cider as soon as they finish their pizza, and they gracefully leave. But people, the conversation style, the whole experience is changing our customer experience. So, So just to transition to kind of wrap that up, we learned a bunch of things about self-pour, right? It's the potential to really drive dollar per ticket increases. Those opportunities to reduce your costs of operations in labor and cost of goods are very real because alcohol theoretically has a higher gross margin on it. There's costs for doing business with it, and they're real, but we're learning every day, and we feel good about being part of a system where we've got that support. And the expanded audience and distance has just been really material. We've already touched on the other points about wine.
Yep.
We did learn. Go ahead, Elena.
No, I was just saying thanks for just keeping us on time here. Really appreciate that second topic, and I hope everyone got some great ideas. But I definitely want to make sure we have time for that battle for locations, which I think is a really, really tough topic, but really important one if you get a chance to tee up the poll for the next audience, for the audience.
Got it. So let's do that. What I'd like to do is, so we're wrapped up with that. We're going to jump into the battle for locations. Again, I hope you got some of those takeaways. It can be done. Anyway, we can share with you more one-on-one or in the future events how to get it done. But if you're not thinking about it, I hope that keeps you awake at night thinking about how to get it done. So we're going to jump right into the poll for our next topic about locations. So help us, if you could, one more time. It would be helpful to understand for the perspective of the folks in the audience. It may not all be about locations, although it has been for us. But what is the primary limiting factor in your growth? For those of you that have one store and haven't done another one yet, or have a couple of stores and might do more, or for those of you that are investors in the space, again, please jump in, share your perspective, and we'll have the folks comment on it, and we'll use that to help drive a deeper dive conversation. Really appreciate you guys investing your time today. It's a pretty good group, and I hope this is, inspiring some interest in the deeper dive conversations. I see about half the folks have voted. Lots of folks do an email. I know it's tough to multitask. We're right in the middle of everybody's day. So, well, thanks for playing along. I'm going to go ahead and show the results. So, not enough good locations. Ray, that's one of your favorite topics, right? Or most sensitive topics?
Yep, absolutely.
Limited capital to invest. We'll talk at the end of the call about there's ways to get to that. There's a couple of folks that identified themselves as investing in the space on this call. Part of what we're doing at Wiley Development Group is trying to bring together people who want to be in the space but don't want to get their hands dirty but really believe in it, with opportunities to partner with the franchisees and operators or folks that we invest in, especially our managers, trying to get them out into the business. Available personnel, boy, do we feel your pain. The market has changed a lot in the last decade, right, Ray?
Yes, it has. It got really, really tight, and I do believe it's loosening just a little bit lately.
Oh, that's great news. And capacity to build stores. So we're going to talk about something that my mentor, Dan Carney, he was the founder of Pizza Hut. He's a dear family friend. When I sat down with Dan about a year ago to talk about our objective to help our managers become store owners and invest in them so that we can invest in stores without having to operate them all. And I described to him our vision of delivering a turnkey store. I mean, just so that like we did with my son, he parachuted out of the military. He did participate in the last 8-week stretch, and now he's opened a bunch of stores. But Dan told me if we could streamline the process so the new operator doesn't have to build the store, or our JV partners or franchisees in any brand can arrive and drive in a store, he felt we would change the industry, and he's been on our side coaching us through some of these discussions. So let's talk about locations and what the opportunities are. that are out there. Let's continue with the slides if I can. So we have found that, just talk about type of locations real quick and then how to get them. End caps really, really matter. I think it's fair to say that, again, I haven't been directly involved in the business as many years as Ray has. And Ray, I look back at the years, though, of the Subways and some other brands that we were involved together. If anybody on the call is familiar with Skyline Chili, we built a bunch of Skyline Chili locations in the late 80s. That's how Ray ended up in Dayton. But back then, we were happy to take an inline location that was in a good shopping center. We didn't care if it was back by the grocery store or off the street. All that mattered was a good center and it had a traffic light and those sort of things. But Ray, can you comment about what your experience has been over the last year and a lot of things we've learned from Kelly, who's head of real estate in your brands, about the value of an end cap and the visibility and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would just say, early days of Subway, we would take inlines all the time, never think twice about it. And as time went on, we started to see end caps perform better. And then as I got involved in Hothead and Rapid Fire, we really saw how that did affect sales. And so, really our thinking is I wouldn't do anything but an end cap. But it does matter. It really does matter.
Yeah, it does, and we've been fortunate. The couple of stores that I have in the Rapid Fire brand, I have one that's inline. It performs very well. It's not the end of the world, but the visibility in having an end cap is so much. It's two signs. It's the customer sees you go in both directions, and statistically, it makes a huge difference. So one of the challenges in doing that is, trying to keep up with my own notes here. One of the challenges in doing that is getting the opportunity to get to that kind of location. So one of the things we found is that the real estate partnerships that I've had over the years as a management consultant in capital markets and with investors, until 2 years ago, I didn't realize the demand of long-term investors who buy the ultimate buildings to have the opportunity to have fast casual clients in them. I think it's kind of counterintuitive, and I'm sure there was a time when it wasn't the case, but thanks to the Amazon effect and the crushing impact on product stores, things that are non-grocery, let's face it, malls have had challenges over the recent years, and shopping centers that are anchored by product companies, people who sell stuff, are challenged. But that has driven a strong preference by folks who own the buildings and folks who will want to build new buildings on available retail prime, parking lot locations. Is they're attracted to the brands. Well, so we have a partnership with at least one party that has lots of buildings in 20 states. It appears we may have some others in development where those buildings had product or service type concepts in them, and they're feeling that effect of the internet and of Amazon. And they're highly motivated to work with us. And the fact that we have the optionality of various store formats and store types, they have been willing to offer way above market TI allowances. We have just about to do our first location as a part of a series of locations in 2019. But the point is, the opportunity is out there to work with those kind of partners. And if you're in a QSR fast casual brand, and the brand is on the rise, and you've got some notoriety, those brands, whether it's some of our friends, Ray, that have Subways and want to put Subways of the future in them, they can put their Subways of the future in them and build those in buildings. We obviously want to take advantage of these partnerships for brands that we're trying to build. Second is the opportunity for complete new construction projects. Now, any of you guys that are in the business, I'll tease you with this idea. If you think about all the big shopping centers, and let me clarify, not shopping centers, the Myers, the Kroger, the Target, the Super Walmarts, the Costco's, big grocery-centric operators that built and developed locations over the last 5 to 7 years coming out of the downturn, in general, did not develop the parking lots. If you're one of those operators, you do $20, $40 million a month, well, you don't need the shopping center out there. So there is an opportunity, and we've been approached by partners who would like to have the opportunity to have us with multiple restaurants in a single location, and they will literally build the buildings for us. We haven't built the first one yet. We've been working on this for a year. It appears that it's going to get off the ground. So if you're in a brand that you like and you need more locations in the area you are, and you might entertain being involved in one of our brands, there might be an opportunity to work together. If neither of those is the case, then you may be able to identify these kind of partnerships on your own. But we're here to help bring everybody together. The opportunity for the developer to build the site, for us to come in and be there as tenants before they make that investment, and for us to all win on the end together. This is just an example. These are, I mentioned earlier that we grew up in the restaurant business. These are friends that other companies owned by friendly parties to us that are fighting the battle for locations. So I figured, why compete with them? Why not partner with them? We don't have a contract together. We're not, business partners. They have people, they have franchisees, and they have corporate expansion plans that need sites. So given the opportunity to go into a new building together, they'd be thrilled to. And back to Ray's Fave 5 concept, a coffee concept is a great complement to pizza or Mexican or sandwiches, right? A breakfast concept's not a threat to me, and everybody likes donuts for dessert. So the point is, if we co-locate with traffic builders like this, again, allowing for parking, because somebody will come back at me and say, well, you can't have that many parking spaces. Find the right land, building the right buildings, the opportunity's there. If this gets you excited, we'd love to talk about it. But the point is, why battle with the competition when we can work with them? That's just good old-fashioned game theory for anybody who's been around game theory. I wanted to share with everybody the markets where we are actively pursuing these strategies. The gold markets are where we have folks that are in area developments in one brand or another, or partner brands that have expressed their commitment to work with us either on converting buildings or becoming tenants in new buildings to be built. If these are areas of interest to you, or if you have operations in these areas, it'd be great to talk to you. We have areas where we have not yet expanded, but our real estate partners want to expand, and those are the green areas. So there's definitely a pattern here of the southwest, or the southern states and the east. So.
Well, Chris, as we wrap up our third topic and move on to the next, I just want to reiterate, in case anyone missed or joined late, that what we really hope you take away and you're seeing as we launch into our last topic is there's so much more to get into. And so to that end, if you're interested more in the real estate, we're going to have an end of April event, where we're going to deep dive that a lot more deeply. So each of these, this is just a setup of all four. We know it's a little compressed in time, but we're going to deep dive each month into all of these. So, Chris, if you want to wrap up and then launch us into our last topic.
Great. You guys can read the screen. I think we covered these points pretty well. If you have questions about them, we'll talk about how we can get connected to deal with that more. And again, we're jumping now into the social media marketing, Matt Platt's home turf. And I'd like to kick off with just a quick topic and then a poll. Social media, when we look back about 2 years ago, I remember having a brainstorming session with my team, and we were trying to figure out, how many email addresses do we have for our customers? How many of our customers order online? And 2 years ago, it took more than two hands to count it, but it was not in the tens of thousands. We literally caught the wave of online ordering and of ultimately third-party delivery. I'll talk about in a minute. And obviously our team, we made some big investments in Facebook even before we met Matt, and we developed or acquired the technologies to simultaneously post, cool food pictures to all the websites for all the stores and things like that. And even before we met Matt, about 18 months into that process and the transformation of our business to really capitalize on social media, we literally went, we're in tens of thousands of interactions on Facebook. Our social media interactions, which include people finding you on Google and searching you and commenting on you, crested over 1 million interactions. If you're not getting these kind of results, then you want to participate in the deep dive session that we're going to do in a couple months with Matt. But most immediately, we're going to give you a couple of quick takeaways today. And one of those is going to focus on positive reviews. I mean, think about it. Anybody I know in the restaurant business has disdain for Yelp, right? Because Yelp tends to accommodate the cranky customer, and the cranky customer is the one who wants to write the bad reviews about you. We have found, because we give great customer service and we have great product and we really work hard at it, that the challenge was, how do we get the customers who have positive reviews, who feel good about us and know us and love us, to do it? So I'd like to, with that, jump into a quick poll to get a sense of what your primary forms of marketing are, how exposed this audience is, everybody that's on the call with us today, before I have Matt jump in and give us some real nuggets of wisdom. So if you could, one last poll. I realize we're bucking up against the end of the hour. We got 5 minutes. We'll do this. I'm going to get Matt to give you some great takeaways, and I certainly understand if some of the folks have to drop off, you'll know how to reach us. So thanks, you guys, for sharing your thoughts and playing along this long. I hope we've inspired some ideas, and some of which may even keep you awake a little bit. Looks like we got most people voted. Thank you very much. And there we have it. By the way, Ray is a huge fan and taught me over the years that you got to mail pictures of food. I see a third of you guys, your primary form is direct mail or coupons. We certainly are in that business. It makes me crazy to discount my food to my regular customer. I see 80+% are in the social media game, and it looks like about a third of you guys are experimenting with delivery services. Obviously, that's restricted by where they are deployed. We're in big, small towns in a lot of cases. They're not there yet. But Matt, what I'd like to do is, if you could share a couple thoughts, see if I can cue up the slide here. Well, if you could just share a couple thoughts before I go into all this web mobile stuff about what really works. I mean, now we got web and mobile driving people to your website, driving you to Facebook. But what are the things the audience needs to know that are obvious about social media when it comes to your advertising, your content, that sort of thing?
Number one, that video dominates. That if you're not a restaurant, and we're actually ready to launch a free course for a lot of our clients to teach them how to create video in-house with an iPhone, with a tripod, talk about today's best pizza, the beers on tap, and a new dish. That's what people want to see. They want to hear from people in the store. They want to see locally oriented content. And it's unbelievable. Like you talk about the beer videos that you showed earlier. Those have reached 60, 70,000 people, a handful of them. And then we took that data and we took the people that watched 50% or more of a couple-minute video, and we retargeted them with another message and another message. And you're hitting that whole know, like, and trust. But video is where it's at. If you can find a creative way to put your staff, your team in front of a video camera, your people that follow you will really relate to that.
Matt, can you share a thought about, again, I know we made significant investments as a team prior to when we met you to use these technologies that allow us to shoot these pictures of food, right? And again, just like coupons, pictures of pizza, pictures of salad, pasta, burritos, whatever it might be in either brand. But they would simultaneously post out to all the sites, and our goal was to put pictures up every day. Can you tell us about how this ever-evolving world of algorithms and stuff is actually causing a lot of our investments in that to be nothing but content on our website, but they're not making it to people's timelines and Facebook speak?
Yeah, so Facebook's got a pretty complicated algorithm, just like Google, that a lot of their stuff is based on the scroll. So if I get to Facebook here and I'm on here looking up something on Facebook and I don't stop the scroll, if I just keep going, that's called negative feedback. That Facebook's algorithm says, okay, the customers aren't engaged in that, so we're not going to show them the next thing that Rapid Fire puts out, the next thing that Hothead puts out. So you might have an audience of 10,000 people, and every month it gets less and less, the less engagement you get. And one of the things with the content you're talking about, Facebook wants organic, original content. They would much rather have my kid with a pizza that he's eating, pulling it out of his mouth and sauce on his face that's actually happened versus a pizza in a studio. And as crazy as it may sound, their algorithm can tell, and a lot of the ways their algorithm can tell is our eyes stop on stuff. Just like we look at a car wreck, when we're on Facebook, we're less inclined to look at an advertisement than we are a kid with pizza sauce all over his face and cheese coming out of the mouth. That catches the attention. And when you can stop the scroll, you get less negative feedback on your ads. You get more engagement. The more engagement, the more positive feedback you get, the more it shows. And what happens too is when you're putting content like that out and you're putting it across, let's say like 50 locations, you have a great piece of pizza, you're putting it across 50 locations, it's not engaging the customers enough because it's just how to explain it, but it doesn't really get people's attention. Whereas you take and you put Shelby, who works the cash register every Wednesday, and you put her in front of there with a piece of pizza, people that are in your area see Shelby. They know Shelby. Her parents see it. Her grandparents see it. Her boyfriend sees it. They like, they comment. The more engagement, it drives it up. And customers love to see people from your restaurant versus a photo shoot. And so that's one of the biggest reasons too, is that, you know, it used to be back in the day, 15 years ago, the people would sell dental practices. Hey, we got 1,000 dental practices. You buy from our company and we'll do a blog post for you. And they would do the same blog post 15,000 times all over the country. Google figured it out and said, hey, you're just reusing this, trying to be lazy. So that's kind of what you're talking about. There's a lot of things that go into it, but that's the algorithm aspect. And it literally all comes down to stop and to scroll. The more people stop and look at your content, the more Facebook shows it for free.
Got it. And we've had great success. As I said, we launched the beer wall using those videos. That was my first experience with it. Now we're doing it across many, many stores. That is a sample of what we're going to do a full hour on in upcoming months, excuse me, with Matt. We didn't touch on this topic, but I just want to hit it real quick because we're out of time. But if you don't manage this day in and day out, this is not a fire and forget. This is not post stuff. I mean, it is literally taking very deliberate efforts to learn how to take videos, to shoot the videos, to get the store managers, to get their staff to create videos. And you have to do it routinely and regularly and build the habits. And we're learning how to do this. But then you have to measure what worked, because Matt likes to say there's no way to predict what's going to work, so other than the concept, but we just experiment, and he helps us through a dashboard to understand what's working and what's not, so we can really move dynamically on it. Again, just pushing ahead a little bit because of time. One thing we didn't talk about here in detail, but we will talk about in the future event, is the reviews. I touched on my disdain for Yelp. But the reality is that, the customer is motivated to give you a negative comment is the one who's going to comment more often. But what we've found is if we can use the video and use the engagement, creating a fun environment, creating fun exchange through our Facebook pages, customers who, they're not mad at you, so they wouldn't make a mad comment. They love you. Now they're inclined to comment positively, and they're telling their story, and they're telling their friends. So my point is, we'll go into deeper in the full session in May, actually, how this works, why it works. But the point is, it's been a big learning curve. We've learned how to do it. If you don't manage it, it will hurt you. So it's not something we can ignore anymore. We didn't touch on online ordering, third-party delivery. I put that under social media because those are mobile-driven applications. And the one takeaway on that I would challenge you with is, you don't just turn that stuff on and it works. If you're in a fast casual business and you're customer facing, you've got to be able to manage that product and that service without disrupting your customers in the store. So with that, we've really hit all the topics. I'd like to get us wrapped up real quick, because I know people start to drop off. Really just recapping the steps you can take now. If we piqued your interest, or if it was new information, a new spin on it, on the tax thing, that really could impact your taxes right now for 2018. If you put stores in service in 17, you want to go back and look at that with your tax people. We'll go deeper into the fast casual alcohol revolution, what it takes to deploy it in states where, of course, you must have alcohol licenses available. We'll do a deep dive on the battle for locations and these partnerships that we have, and how you can take advantage of them, how we can work together to do it. And of course, we'll come back and do this with Matt. What I'd like to invite you all to do is that with us, this is not a hobby, right? We're building stores, we're building partnerships, we're forging these relationships, because we found that there are a lot of folks out there who want to be a restaurant owner, who want to be a restaurant investor, who want to buy the buildings the restaurants come from. But it doesn't all come together. So that's what our mission is at Wiley Development. Obviously, we build and operate stores, but we have 4 ways that people can participate with us. One is, again, we'll help set up our general managers to become a store owner in a sweat equity fashion. We have an opportunity for smaller operators with 1 or 2 stores to maybe put together our resources and help you do 3 to 5 stores together with our support. And for the folks who don't want to get their hands dirty, or maybe thought they did, but then realized this is real work, we have limited partnership opportunities. And of course, with any of these brands, there's the opportunity, and specifically the brands who's sponsoring us with Rapid Fire Pizza and Hothead Burritos, there's opportunities still to control an entire state, to control a regional market. or maybe just the town that you're in. So we're expanded, those brands are expanded into about 10 or 12 states right now, but there is that opportunity, like back in the good old days of Subway, or, you know, Chipotle could never franchise, but they certainly blazed a market. But we have an opportunity to control states, regions, and markets. So I'll leave this on the screen as we wrap up. Thanks everybody for joining us. Ned from my team would be happy to coordinate one-on-one conversations if you'd like us to share more information with you. Our next event will be Thursday, February 28th. It seems like we've settled on the last Thursday of the month. We'll do the deep dive on taxes and the tax incentives and all of the related topics that go with that, and a little bit more on the 4 ways to participate. You can certainly look us up on Facebook or Wiley Development Group online. So I'd like to thank everybody, and really it's just awesome you guys stayed all the way through the whole thing. We just had a couple of folks who had to cut to the next meeting. So thank you very much for your time. Have a great day, and we'll see you next month.
All right, thanks, Chris.
I'm going to check.
Anyway.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm going to just check real quick and see if we had any questions for anybody who wants to stay around for a second. Nope, I think we're good to go. Thanks, everybody. Ray, thanks for participating. Darren and Matt, we'll see you next month. I'm going to go ahead and end the session now.
Yeah, Chris.
Thank you.